30 degrees. So you can see the temperature has really changed quite a bit. And climate change and global warming, it is not a hoax. So yes, and what do you think about, you know, the challenges that the wetland is facing right now?
I think my concerns could be more specific. And firstly is the size of this wetland. We know it's huge, and 95% of this place is covered by the meadow vegetations and also the reed. But you see, every year there's a rising number of birds coming here, migratory birds, and trying to come here to survive the winter. I don't know if this place is amazing, it's brilliant, but since more birds are attracted to this place to spend their winter time, is there enough facilities or the plantations to support the birds? And my second concern is about the fire hazard, because the administrator here told me that they have already established a line of the shelter forest around the park and in between of the park and the road, because they are afraid of the locals, if they haven't been informed of the dangerous consequences of bringing in of any flammable materials, especially the kids. If they come into this park and bring any materials that can trigger fire, that will be a disaster. So I think what's more important, we should like inform the locals and also tourists, and also we should popularize the knowledge of how to protect wetland and the wildlife to our public.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And ultimately it comes to, you know, what are you going to do, especially if this is next door to where you live? And also, like you guys mentioned, you know, like our human actions has consequences to the environment, and it will affect, it has the butterfly effect, right? You know, like to a different continent, you know, your actions might actually trigger a reaction over there. You're listening to Roundtable and watching Roundtable too. I'm He Yang, and here's Lai Ming, Huang Shen, and Fei Fei. We'll be back after this break. Stay tuned. You are listening and watching to Roundtable. I am He Yang. With me are amazing people, Lai Ming and Huang Shen, and Fei Fei, who's only here with us for this particular show.
Yeah.
Yeah, or if we're lucky, we might get you back from time to time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like during the break, we had to put our sunglasses on. It's not just to look cool. The sun is radiating right above our heads right now. So it's getting really hot here, guys.
Yeah, it is. I feel my head is burning.
It's burning.
But the glasses certainly makes me feel cooler.
Cooler. Oh, there you go. Check him out. Check Lai Ming out, just like that. And also, this just made us think about, with all the sun that Tibet has, isn't this just the perfect place to have a ton of solar panels to produce power?
Yeah.
And Fei Fei, you happen to been reporting on this subject.
Yes,
So
I
what have
have.
you found out here in Tibet?
Well, first of all, in Lhasa, I think the city is called the Sunlight City, and the city of sunlight, because obviously. And so that's why the country and the government is trying to utilize these resources, simply because one thing is that it's more friendly to the environment, obviously, and they are trying to figure out how to reduce the cost by building more solar panels. I think on the way from Lhasa to Ningxi a couple of days ago, I've noticed at least 3 small to medium-sized solar power plants along the railway only, because we haven't really gotten beyond the mountains and into the villages, so we don't know the full scale. But there are definitely solar panels building along the way and providing electricity and power to the villagers and also to the cities. And more importantly, Tibet, especially in the Ningxi area, is a very mountainous area, and I think we've known that from going to Lulang, and the altitude changes dramatically over one day, and it's also a resources that we can utilize by producing more hydropower. And that's why Ningxi also have tons of hydropower plants.
Now, the issue with generating clean energy in West China, Qinghai, Xinjiang, and Tibet, these are places with plenty of clean energy resources, but the issue with that is there aren't as much industries in this part of the country as there are in southeast coastal regions. So as a result, you could see the result of generating a lot of clean energy, but with no way to consume it all. So it's a huge waste of resources. But luckily, according to Fei, there have been some solutions coming up.
There's a grand project. It's been going on for decades, actually, that's trying to transform this clean energy produced in Tibet or Xinjiang or Qinghai or Inner Mongolia and to more populous areas in the east. And Tibet has recently actually been involved in the project. The original project actually are just targeting in Inner Mongolia or Yunnan or Guizhou, but then as technology developed, as people know how to build projects on a high altitude environment, Ningxi is also involved in the project as well. And it's becoming a base in Tibet and also providing power to, for example, the neighboring Sichuan or even more eastern areas.
So yes, we see that solar panels, so solar power that is increasingly being used more widely in China, and also, the wind turbines that we see in, let's say, Xinjiang, and a lot of the places in China that produces a lot of wind. Don't let that go to waste, right? And as a nation, we are still trying very hard to wean off coal, but it's not easy. And considering that you do have 1.4 billion people that you need to take care of, and as people's livelihoods develop, I think people's demand for a more convenient life, that also goes up too. So, and a lot of that comes down to how do you power this kind of lifestyle? How do you find the efficient, clean, and affordable energy? So this is definitely, I think, a big topic that decision makers are grappling with.
There are actually a lot of challenges, actually, because I think along the way you've also seen in the mountains in Ningxi there are a lot of high voltage cables on the mountains. That's very difficult. There is a very difficult technical bottleneck at the moment, is that how to reduce the loss of power along the way, because we are transmitting powers in thousands of kilometers. There'll definitely be some power will be lost during the transmission, and they're trying to work to reduce that loss to the minimum. And that's, I think, a headache for experts and people in the power industry around the world, is that that needs technical innovation.
It makes a lot of sense. Let's imagine power, electricity, as a fountain. It's a water source. Water flows from a river, on the riverbed, and as it goes, the water sinks into the underground, and so as a result, the stream gets smaller and smaller. Same goes for power and electricity. If you want to deliver power over a long distance, you are going to see a significant loss of that power that's being wasted in the cables and that sort of thing. As a result, currently our solution is to develop hyper voltage or ultra voltage delivery.
Yeah.
It's the same as building a big water tank on top of your building or your residential building. And when you have a huge reserve of water, that makes it easier to flow everywhere else. So high ultra voltage power delivery is in fact one of the directions in which we are pursuing in terms of most advanced technologies.
And now we're in a transition period. We are developing from purely depending on the traditional resources and to develop the new resources and a clean energy. And what I want to mention here is that probably we need to show our respect to the workers who construct all these facilities in the area. Because when we travel around the region and I saw the signal towers and electricity towers building right on the top of a mountain. It's very steep and very rough. I don't know how the manpower can realize this impossible mission. So I think they're the unsung heroes because of their dedication to their job and their hard work, so we can enjoy the convenience brought by these modern and clean technologies. So I think these people, they deserve our recognition and appreciation.
Right, and also the kind of institution or the kind of management methods that could put all the labor into good use is also very important in this part of the region. We often talk about high altitude sickness, and this really matters when we carry out major infrastructure building projects. We traveled on the Qinghai-Tibet Railway, which is 1,956 kilometers, and that was a huge project involving thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. And to make sure that no one suffers from high altitude sickness or no one falls from that symptom is one of the crucial issues that they have to look into. And their solution was to build multiple stops along the way and to limit the amount of hours that people use, and also to set up clinics at intervals of about 10 kilometers to make sure that when people feel uncomfortable, they can seek help. I think the same goes for other infrastructure building projects like wind turbines and solar panels and maybe high voltage delivery towers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also we've checked with Feifei since she's been reporting here in Tibet. You know, the things that stood out for her, and she's putting into her reports. And by the way, your reports we can check out your reports on the Beijing Hour. On the Beijing Hour. So you know that show, and you know where to find that on podcast. Just search those three little words.
Yeah.
2 words, Beijing Hour.
3 words. The Beijing Hour.
The Beijing Hour.
The Beijing Hour.
Yeah. Another way for the local people in Tibet to get energy is to consume some butter tea or sweet tea. These are actually 2 different types of traditional Tibetan tea. And we happen to have someone who's from Inner Mongolia.
Yes.
Who also have their own butter tea.
Yeah.
So, Feifei, do you sense a difference there? Which one is tastier?
Of course, the butter tea, I would say.
From here?
Actually, from the butter tea, the base is the same. Basically the same between the Tibetan and Mongolian tea. It's just the stuff you put into. For example, in Tibet, you put into yak butter or Highland barley, something like that. But we don't have that in Mongolia, so we'll add in a variety of dairy products. from cheese to butter to maybe different stages of fermented cheese, a lot of cheese. I don't know how to say that in Chinese even, and also some grains. Maybe some mealies as well. Sometimes some cold mutton inside the hot tea as well as a breakfast.
Cold mutton in butter tea.
Yeah, it's delicious.
It's a savory dish.
It's a savory.
Energy intensive.
Yeah, it's meat into it.
Yeah, it's like the overnight leftover mutton you have from last night, and you have a very small piece of it, and you put it into the hot milk tea, Mongolian tea. It's very tasty.
That, my friend, is a soup.
That's not the soup.
What's a staple food to eat with the butter tea? Is there anything you can dip into the butter tea to absorb the broth?
No, you just put everything inside. A lot of butter, a lot of cheese, and you put it inside, and we don't have the fancy tea leaves.
You will filter out the tea leaves,
right? The point is, when I drink tea, I drink the liquid.
Yeah, we drink the liquid as well.
The liquid is the base.
It's the base.
But with the solid...
Basically a savory...
And then I take a sip. Oh, yeah.
So sweet tea for me is, well, I'm not...
A bit strange.
Yeah, it is a bit strange. And it's difficult to swallow at some point, especially...
Filling.
Yeah, that's a very difficult concept for me to swallow and digest.
Yeah.
Because for me, tea is in a bowl, and it's salty, and you have in terms of to have that noodle along with the tea, and at the same time they'll also have some other savory dishes. But in Mongolia we'll have sweet dishes and also some pastry, like deep fried pastry, and mostly sweet or plain just pastry. So that's one difference between us, actually.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You only get to know this when you travel.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's not something, when I first tried the tea, as Guang Shen just mentioned, it blew my mind. It reminded me of my home, and yeah, I really want to go back. You know, and with the landscape, with the grasslands, it feels like in Mongolia at some point. Yeah.
That's really interesting, and also for the local people here, like the tea that they've developed, it suits the local tongue and suits the local, situation, in the sense that apparently in the Tibetan butter tea, like 80% of it is pure fat. That comes from the yak, the kind of cow that is particular to the highlands, and I find them to be the cutest creature in the world. And when you consume so much fat, I guess it helps you to battle the being modernized sweet tea, which is, more pleasing to the palate of, I guess, most outsiders maybe. And that has been, an experience that I think everyone and each of you who come here would have to.
10 cups of butter tea.
Me too.
Yeah,
I have 3 bottles. I have like 3
bottles?
big jars of the butter tea.
Did it help you to get through everything?
Yes, it did.
I think it did.
Yeah. I feel super energized after.
What questions you want us to answer, and thank you to all of you who've left a comment and message. And there are plenty of ways to find us. Currently we're on video, on CGTN, on Yang Shipin, on Weibo, at 英语环球广播, and also you can always find us on our podcast platform, on Apple Podcasts, which is Roundtable China. And this is from the platform of Easy FM, actually. Okay, so forgive me that I have to put this super close to my specs, because otherwise I cannot see, and the sun is simply that big right now. So China 7624 says, howdy back to you.
Howdy.
And Qiao Yu says, she's asking, I would like to know what Tibetan people like to do. And
along the Bakwas, we are talking about blending coffee with some other drinks. I haven't tried. Yeah, with yogurt, with yak.
So, well, and that's something that coffee shops manage to invent themselves into, and that's not you know.
Or code, go to the studios to learn break dance and also all kinds of street dances. So we all know that street dancing will make Olympic debut in the 2024 Paris Olympics, and we have seen IOC's ambition in like meeting the needs of urban sports and trying to lure a younger audience who love to watch street dancing battles. And now I think in other cities and around the country, the younger generation are crazy, are passionate about street dancing. And also recently a very popular street dancing reality show is going to make a comeback. And the irony here is that street dance, when we date back to its origin, it's a kind of a dance that took place in streets, urban areas, or schoolyards. But now we have seen a large number of young people. They just apply and also they just sign in for these dancing studios to learn the particular street dancing, because there are so many subcategories of street dancing. You can be like a breaker or b-boy, whatever you want, and it's very fascinating to see actually the young people here, they enjoy the same kind of recreational activities as their peers or their counterparts in other parts of the country.
Yeah, we've seen street dance really have moved from the peripheral cultural spot to mainstream in China in recent years, along with like rapping, rap music, and also like skateboarding, you know, these, you know, if you date back to the origin of it, might be what, you know, some of the underground activities of some youngsters. Now they're just being taken up by more people, and it's interesting to see like their development and what will come up next, you know, in terms of these new cultural inventions. And also, well, I saw some young people doing stuff earlier on. Lai Ming, you happen to be here too.
Yeah.
Do you want to share something about that?
Were doing warm-up or when they were ready to stretching. They were doing stretching. So Huang Shen said Huang Shen actually joined them in the stretching session, and they appear to have finished a jogging session of 10 kilometers along the way.
10 kilometers.
Almost 14 actually. Wow. Right around the Lhalu Wetlands, which is the place we are having this chat with you. And, well, Lai Ming, if I may point out, those folks, they were stretching, but that's the after-run stretch, right?
Yeah. Correct. So the stretching might be a little original to the Lhalu Wetland, because it is a lengthy jog, and people might take advantage of this venue to do the exercise routine. This is exclusive here. But something else that Huang Shan shared, for instance, about hip-hop dancing and dancing parlors, I think this represents the connection that Tibet has with the rest of the country. And my own observation of what young people do also proves that connection between the rest of the country. We spent a day at the Nobolinka Park Palace.
Yes, palace.
There are palaces inside the park.
The administrator keeps reminding us it's a palace. But it is also a park. And my observation there was young couples. They bring the kids there to hang out. I mean, ever since I became a parent, I've been paying attention to what young folks do with their kids, where they hang out, how do they make sure that their kids have enough outdoor time. And so it was quite endearing for me to see that young couple at the park, at the palace, with their kid. And that kid was only 9 months old. And the way that the kid was dressed and the way they looked after the kid was, well, a few straight puppies.
There are a couple of doggies just running by and barking.
Now, the way the young couple interacted with the kids in the park was no different from the way we interacted with my son when we hang out in the park in Beijing. So again, that goes to show the kind of connection between people living in Tibet and those living in other parts of China.
Well, I can just think of one difference that, you know, if you're doing breakdancing here, then you're doing that on high altitude.
Yeah.
On average, 4,000 meters above sea level. And for those folks, you know, who practice here, and if you, let's say, go to Beijing, Shanghai, or anywhere that's like lower in altitude, wouldn't they just perform so much better than here?
They should join a national team and represent China and to perform in the 2024 Olympics. So probably they will bring back home a number of gold medals in that category.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Early on, Feifei told me that she has a friend who runs 5 kilometers every day here in Lhasa, and I was thinking, what if she joins the Olympic? What if she joins the marathons all across the country? That's becoming very popular these years.
Yes.
Yeah. And also I read somewhere, you know, since the Olympics is ongoing, it said that the Chinese national team, like the swimming team, for example, some of the team members would be training on high altitude plateaus, somewhere possibly not this high, but you know, China's a huge country, and then like in Yunnan province, you know, the altitude is 44 meters above sea level.
It's like this tiny.
What about at the peak of Xiangshan, the frequent...
how low the clouds are.
Yeah.
Like every mountain, the clouds are basically on the they'll cover the peak of basically every mountain. It's like if you climb up the mountain, you're able to touch the clouds.
Yeah.
It's not something you can see in Beijing, definitely.
The cloud that we are looking at right now from beyond the mountains looks like a naughty kid that's playing hide and seek, and he's tipping his head out.
Oh, that's so cute.
You know, so it is, like Feifei said earlier, it feels very close to the sky and to the clouds. Right.
You think that's a naughty kid? I think that's a dog that's chasing after a bone.
I think it looks like a dragon.
No, I think it's a candy floss.
But also their textures are like marshmallows or the cheese top of a cup of milk tea.
Okay, I see no possibility of us reaching a consensus of what it looks like.
Well, I remember there was actually a book called The Clouds That We See or something like that, and then the conclusion was that we can't agree on what it is, and that's just part of nature, part of what you feel here in Tibet. And also, let me give a shout out to 做梦的小飞猪, because you were in Tibet too. You're apparently driving here.
Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Drive safe.
Hello.
Drive safe, yes. And I hope you have the most fun ever, and take good care of yourselves, you and your loved ones, and keep us posted with where you are at, and maybe, you know, if we're in the same place, maybe we'll meet up, that kind of thing. And also Huang Hongcheng, who is a long-time listener, but he's disappeared from the radar for some time, and now he's back.
We have to go to Tibet to bring you back.
Welcome back anyway.
And he's saying that he loves the episodes of the Tibet shows that we've aired so far, and yeah, and it's great to have you back and stick with us. That is all awesome, because it is you, your support, and your attention that we value so much, and it keeps us going, and it makes our experience in Tibet that much more fun, in the sense that we can interact with you. So you can leave us messages on our Apple podcast platform, Roundtable China. You can check out the videos and leave us messages there on CGTN, on Young Shipin, also on Weibo at 英语环球广播. And if you have other questions, concerns, or whatever you want to share with us, these are the places to do that. Again, I would like you to take in all this beautiful scenery, so poetic and picturesque, at the Lhalu Wetland National Nature Reserve. And we will see you on our next stop in Tibet on Railway Trippin', Tibetan style on Roundtable. So we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.